Welcome back, everybody, to the ESA Cup. We're going to be hopping in with a couple of games today, looking at the match between Owl Aspire, and Team 27. I'm here with Bacon, and Bacon, I'm ready to hop into this. How you feeling?
Yeah, same. It should be an interesting matchup, really. I don't know if it'll be the most even matchup in the world, but we've got two teams which I think, by their own standards, have likely underperformed. Not only recently, but in previous seasons. MG Aspire, now as of course Owl Aspire, they got knocked out in the Swiss last season. And then Team 27, they kickstarted their run this season, with a 2-7-0 losses in a row, admittedly to the former champions, MVG. So two teams that I think are going to come into this game, Hyber, with a lot to prove.
Yeah, and as we're talking about this game, as we're getting into it, we're going to pull up the map bands and kind of go through the three that we're going to be playing today. What are we seeing? Wow.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting set of bands, really, isn't it? Because both of these teams, it's a bit of a guessing game as to whether they say, okay, we're strong on these maps, let's go and take these maps. Or, do we try something that maybe isn't done too often? But three, I would say, fairly reasonable maps to go to. I haven't quite got the stats in front of me, unfortunately, but I can tell you that both of these teams, they've put some screen practice into these maps. Although, admittedly, I do know that Team 27 now, obviously, a Saturlity Esports, they've not had the best time of it on their own map picks so far.
No kidding. So let's head into our predictions. What are we feeling for this first match right here? See Bozmax, Goat Nax. We're seeing a lot of people who are really in favor of Owl Aspire, but Ontix, with Team Saturlity. Pardon? I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
well, I mean, they found the
Saturlity.
first game of the season hard enough, didn't they? So they decided to compound that by choosing a name that no one can pronounce. But yeah, I mean, I think the predictions pretty accurately match the feeling that a lot of people are going to be having, not only in the staff team but broadly. Team 27, now Saturlity, they've got a lot to prove. They completely underperformed against an absolutely dominant Molotov gang in week one, and that it doesn't surprise me that the majority are betting against them. It in fact surprises me that anyone would bet against them after that performance. But who knows? Let's not be biased. Let's not be cruel or mean or anything like that. Let's maybe have a little bit of hope for them. A little bit of a David v Goliath story.
Yeah, and it's absolutely possible to see some upsets going on here, especially with the three maps that we're going to. I mean, Consulate really is kind of like an everyman's map, right? With it being
Hmm.
so defender sided, usually your opponents are going to get to pick the side start. They're going to pick defense to begin, and they can really tend to run up the score line, leading to some interesting situations. But we may end up seeing, who knows, maybe Saturlity will actually have like a really set plan for that, and they'll come in looking strong. They'll get to their defensive half and pull that off. But as things stand, we're heading into Bank, the first map of this BO3 series, picked, in fact, by Owl Aspire. And I got to say, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a very, very interesting one. Bank's one of those games where
Mhm.
it kind of demands not only the presence of mind to be able to click on heads and faces, not only the presence of mind to be able to execute, on one plane of axis. You've got to be able to commit and execute over the course of 1, 2, and 3 floors. Monty getting banned out, that's not too surprising, is it, Javier, given that we've seen shield operators pretty much ever present meta bans over the course of the last couple seasons.
Well, obviously, yeah, you've got the shield bands being like the meta band, being something that's super strong, but on Bank in particular, with its big open rooms that you can just rest away from your defender opponents using those shields, it does not surprise me one bit to see those taken off the board.
No, and then obviously Blackbeard. Blackbeard came into last season, and there was no real exploits or anything like that, so they weren't putting into any kind of purgatory or quarantine or anything like that. But they were used to absolutely devastating effect in the latter stages of Swiss, and obviously the knockout stages when they were released. And Blackbeard, not too surprised to see that taken off the board. Tuber out is a bit of a rogue pick, though, isn't it? Because I would have thought instead of taking out a Tuber out, maybe take out Arcade or something like that. But what that
Yeah.
suggests to me is that these teams, they're planning around the idea of, yes, we'll have to enable breach with your Thatchers, with your Osas, with the impact EMPs. But then once that happens, they're planning on a very quick breach out onto site.
Yeah, not having the Cade be dropped is definitely an interesting one. The Tuberhound does strike me as a bit odd of a ban. You usually see that operator on maps which center around a lot of wall play, particular exterior walls, right? Where as for hatches, maybe it's not so much of a powerful operator. I don't know how well the Tubber out trick tends to work on the hatches. In my experience, not nearly as well as I'd seen on those like outside walls, on the double walls, where there's a lot more space to put the Cade Claws around the freezing of the Tubber out charge. But no matter, we will be moving on to this basement defense. And Casper running a little bit of an interesting setup. Did you catch that? Is that Legion shotgun?
It is, and you know what? It's not the first time we've seen that so far in this competition, believe it or not. We actually saw that last week as well, taken by, I think it might have been Variox on MVG, but I'm almost certainly wrong on that. But that's actually, believe it or not the first time we've seen that setup taken in the season so far.
It is a really good shotgun. I did see during my game last week that there was a Knock player. I can't remember who it was playing Knock, but walked up blue stairs and managed to pick up multiple frags with that shotgun, the 6.9. Definitely something powerful, and especially since the more recent round of buffs, it's something that you can absolutely find impact with.
Absolutely. I mean, it's not. I don't know if I'd agree that it's the strongest, but that's also because I can't hit the side of a bomb from the inside. Here we can see the Twitch being used to really good utility as those Goyos, they're stacked high on that wall. So really, really heavily stacked against the server push. But I do wonder if they've got the range to actually come out and block off where you would plant in default.
We are getting into the round here, and we do see a relatively quick entry over towards server side. Yellow managing to wrest some space away from Owl Aspire, taking control of that early on. But there will be a fight in through the C4 being used to catch a player upstairs in stock. Reflag by Kamiki as he walks forward, pushing through. There is another player upstairs inside of that loan office, but he will escape through that soft hatch that we saw earlier on. Absolutely incredible work out of Eclairo. Managed to escape, managed to get his pick, and then managed to get back to site, keeping himself alive for later on in the round.
Yeah, you can see a reasonably interesting strategy here. You know, they're going through the usual roam clear, they're going through the motions, as it were, but they're not really making good use of that time. A big part of every attacking round is your attacking prep, and whilst they've got these hatches open, they're committing so many resources to clearing out these roams that they're trading man for man at this point. And that's not going to work when it comes to the execute, because especially on server, you kind of need more than one person, I'd wager.
Speaking of the execute, though, some bees coming down into the site. Players' positions still unknown, notably not being pinged by those bees because of the mute jammer that Carol is standing on. So we may see that Saturlity is unaware of the player playing inside of Red Hall, but he will be spotted by the Twitch drone in sight. Some smoke grenades go out, but in exchange, Goyo fires are popped to continue to delay this push. With just a minute left on the board, things quiet down. We go into a little bit of a reset. Carol's position known, but the long angle being held. The Clario will manage to pick that player off as Zin is still upstairs looking to open up hatches. We see a drop into Red Hall. Kamiki is trying to get a kill, but is taken out by the mute, just prone underneath the bench. Last fight going on towards gold, but no, Viclaro will be the one to pick it up. Dropping into sight. There's nothing that the Grim is able to do. Trying to get aggressive, but it isn't going to work.
Yeah, I think that's objectively a good win. It regardless of any kind of tactics or anything that's gone into it, that's a good victory because that sets the scene, really, doesn't it? It sets the tone for how you're going to go on and carry on throughout the game. I really want to pick up on one thing that you mentioned just there, which was really interesting. Just as we go to a quick timeout there, it was the mute placement countering the bees. Now it wasn't too effective in the end because of some good drone work, but it indicates a tactical, a level of tactical awareness coming out in terms of the operator picks and maybe a little bit of redundancy, not a bad redundancy, but backups and things like that in terms of the intelligence game coming out. It used to be the case that you didn't really need your intelligence game. It was a cherry on top of a cupcake. But now what we've got is two teams where they're very aware of how their intelligence, how they, what they know is where and what is happening when. These things are absolutely crucial in a way that I think a year or two ago they just weren't.
I will say I was really impressed at the whole idea of running the mute jammer inside of Red Hall there to deny specifically what we saw, the Grimbees coming
Yeah,
down
exactly.
into the hallway, standing on top of that position, using it to kind of like create a little bit of uncertainty in the attack. was truly a genius idea out of Owl Aspire. Obviously, it didn't work out. Like we saw, the drones came through and they ended up spotting out that player. So while they were aware, while Saturlity were aware that there was a player inside of Red Hall there, it still kind of worked in a way, as Saturlity was forced to drop the hatch. And despite the fact they knew a player was there, they didn't know the precise location. And the Mute was able to win out that fight. We do get into this next round, however, and I'm seeing a little bit of a top floor defense being run by Owl Aspire this time.
Yeah, naturally, you know, having won round one, they no longer can go to basement. Although I'm sure if you ask any team, they would like to defend that basement each and every single time. This is a very different site because you not necessarily, as an attacker, have to roam clear basement unless you're an exceptionally cautious. But usually you don't do that unless you're really prompted to do it by getting caught out in a previous round. Flank cams and things like that tend to be enough. So I don't think we're going to see as extensive a roam clear coming out from the attackers this time. What we are going to see is a little more direct action. He says that, but we are now a minute into the round, and you know it's 2 minutes left. Are we hitting our targets in terms of how we want to set up the site for an attack? I'm not overly convinced we are.
That being said, there has been a little bit of action going on, mostly setup and prep work. Yellow using those Flores drones to be able to get rid of some of the utility, Frost Mats shot out, and notably the Brava of Hakao being used to hack some of those cameras and get a little bit more info for the attack. Speaking of the attack, Yellow does push in through stock, getting shot a little bit through the feet holes. Wizard swings out and manages to hit the headshot onto that player. That's the only entry that we see being run out of Saturlity. Another engagement though, over towards top square. Labukin trying to find himself a fight, aware of the Frost's position, but unable to pick up the kill. Frost not wanting to engage the player, as we see Hako look to work up those spiral stairs on the other side of the map. Things slow down. There's one player isolated over on this lobby side. Will he win the fight? Lots of damage, but Kapker manages to stay alive, and Hako, thinking a little better of it, decides to fall back. Pressed forward on by Kapper, picked up the kill. A little bit of a trade though going on as the numbers do equalize, while Labukin does pick up one more kill. Ace inside of sight, looking to get Case down, but he's forced off by the Goyo canister. We will see a little bit of a reset, but as I say that, Milky does continue to fight forward, picking up a kill, but low HP. He will not be able to take any more damage from this fire as the two players remaining decide to reset and redrone.
Yeah, I mean, I think I heard a little bit of an issue there where the plant went down a little early, but that was countered very effectively by the Inspired there. And now we're in this 2v1 scenario, which isn't desirable at all, because also the two players, whilst they're not currently aware of where this player is, they can set up a crossfire. They won't be able to as Ash. They'll escape, and now Ziven hunting, prowling, trying to get a pick. They've got 20 seconds left. They do not have diffuser in hand. They have to go for these frags out there.
Ziven, last alive, as you say, forced to push forward. Gonna decide to try and walk through the breach, but if he's unable to find a fight soon, it is very unlikely that he'll be able to win the round. A little bit of damage taken through the wall, but Ringer, Rosie, Ziven, absolutely juked by Carol, pushing in through CEO, and Carol will actually be the mute who picks up the last one as Ziven tries to get aggressive.
Absolutely, a pocket full of posies and a couple of rounds of 5.56 through the cranium. Unfortunate there for Saturlity. I think that was not a bad attacking round. I think they picked up the pace maybe a little too much after the first minute, because by the second minute was elapsed, they had come all the way down to a 2v2, then down to a 2v1, and it didn't feel like there was any oomph to it after that initial push. But what I will say, and I will be very firm on this, is that they're not playing like the team that went 2-0 in terms of maps, 14-0 in terms of rounds the other week. They're not playing like that team. So maybe that was a bit of an outlier. What is an issue is they're still yet to pick up a round in the ESA Cup. So, you know, there's positives and there's negatives. The positives and there's negatives.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, if you're not winning any rounds, then you're not going to be winning any games. But early days yet, and we do see Saturlity now attacking onto Owl Aspire's offsite. So if there was a chance for them to pick up their first round, this would likely be it.
Yeah, so we go now to the open area. This is a bit of an out favor site for a number of reasons. Direct access from external to the building, but without having to be on rappel. And then also, you kind of have to have a very multifaceted roam, where not only you're above, you're also below the site. Being below the site, you can't really affect what happens directly, so that limits your effectiveness when you're able to roam. The attackers, they're able to approach very freely in a number of different ways. They can take vertical routes, they can go direct through a couple of different entrances, they can even sometimes surprise you, come up blue, and put pressure directly onto site from there without any pressure. So it'll be interesting to see how they choose to do that. Interesting though that we have seen a focus on intel, and there we go, a focus on killing as well from Saturlity. As I think that's the first time they've gone frag positive in a round so far.
Early engagement out of yellow. He continues to push forward and picks up a second onto Wizard, taking control of top square, and things quiet down a little bit. Capture, the last remaining player up on this top floor, and it looks like, so far, his position has gone unnoted by the attack. We'll see a little bit of vert play being set up by yellow, continuing his dominance upstairs, just asserting their presence, making their positions known, setting themselves up for later on in the round. A little bit of a drop in towards Marble, and like I said, Capture's position completely unknown. He picks up a frag for himself onto the ramp, and that is the primary vertical operator on the Saturlity lineup who's been taken down, which could cause some problems going on in the round.
There's also not really been a reaction to the frag. You know, they didn't really go and say, okay, let's go and hunt Casper down. No. They just kind of kept doing what they're doing. And Casper now, he can keep applying pressure from Banana, or if he chooses, he can just retreat. So that's a roam that's very good. That's gone unpunished. Oh, the shot's almost wall banging onto Valerio, but not quite yellow. They'll finish off Casper, and now Saturlity, now they've got that numerical advantage. Carol, they'll pick it up one go back. They'll pick them all! Oh, no! Oh my word, the bloodlust is real high there as they take out their own player, and that'll be the round.
Carroll a little over ambitious, tapping away at the opposition, but then tapping one too many bullets into his teammate, taking him out. And Saturlity, off the back of that TK, will pick up their first round in the ESA Cup. What are we thinking, Bacon? Are we happy for them?
Well, I mean, they won that round on frags, and that's the first round they won. But they can't even say that they got all the frags themselves. So,
I mean, what it is. It is what
hooray! Hooray! You're on the board. But now, what do you do in the next round? You know, do you go on? Do you continue in that phase? Because I would argue Saturlity more didn't lose that round than Aspire won it. Than going out and winning it. But by the same virtue, Aspire, they didn't help themselves, and the plays that Saturlity made threw them into disarray. I did point out there that Casper, they were completely unpunished on that roam on the top floor, and that's almost sacrosanct. You know, that's a sin, really, if you're an attacking force. You get a roamer, and you're not at least challenging. They were able to still harry and harass them, but it wasn't enough. As Saturlity, they continued to pick up those frags early doors and push right on through for the victory. Round 3, 2-1 then. Aspire in the lead, still defending, but Saturlity, they've got their first one of the season.
I will note an absolutely excellent last round out of yellow, picking up 3 kills for himself throughout that one, being the entry on the Ash, being that spearhead, and just continuing to push forward as they got down to that main floor, finding another frag in towards Archives. He was eventually traded out, but I was really impressed by his play and just being unafraid to take engagements, despite the fact that he'd been shut down so efficiently in the first couple of rounds of the game. We will see that continue this round. He works in towards server. Again, some early control here out of Saturlity. This was very effective by them last round, though they weren't able to convert it into anything. Let's see if they're able to find something from it this time.
I do wonder, given the kind of map that this is, why Tubarão was banned out by Aspire, because they're defending first, and Tubarão, it's just not an opera you really see that often here on Bank. You don't really need to do that much in the way of breach denial. Even on top, you know, you're expecting those double walls, you're expecting one of them to get breached, and you sometimes even play into it. Well, here we go. Saturlity, they're going to breach, they're going to start moving in towards Tellers, but there's a couple of Aspire players hiding out in open area. The cam gets spotted by Mozzie. He won't be able to pinch one just yet, but that does alert the Saturlity players and the Aspire players that where they are, and Valerio, he'll win out. He'll take yellow off the board, yellow of course being absolutely deadly. Do they know about the second though?
Will be traded by Lebkuchen. He will pick up Wizard inside of open area, and the remaining open area players decide to fall back, not wanting to continue to engage, recognizing that they're being completely pinched out upstairs, and knowing that they want to keep themselves alive to be able to engage with the plant attempt later on in the round.
It's an incredibly heavy kind of mid-floor committal, as opposed to last time where we saw them approach mostly from kind of different angles. So it's interesting to see how Aspire, they actually kind of predicted that. They had much more in the way of an off-site presence than Saturlity did here, and it's worked for them so far. I do wonder if those mute jammers are continuing to frustrate the Grim, and whether they actually think there's nobody there.
I doubt that they'll fall for the same thing twice, and as we see Saturlity continue to approach the site, they will save a couple of Grimbies to use later on in the round, but you got to imagine that they ran into this last round. They should be aware that those mute jammers are there, that they're being used to hide the presence of the players inside of Red Hall. But as I say that, Kapker managing to find himself a pick, flashbang tossed him, and he's sprinting upstairs with the shotgun out, finding some impact with that thing after all. Grimbies go out, mute will be pinged by the C4 goes up the hatch, but Kapker looking to continue to engage, continue his dominance, running up those marble stairs. That's his territory there. And Patsy will be able to pick up the last one, feeling like he doesn't want to stay and fight. Grim dropping the hatch, and he will be taken down.
Yeah, I think that's a very well played round from Aspire there. They did, they didn't let the previous round really get to them. They just bounced back. Really good roaming, actually, I think was the key that round. I've talked about attack prep a couple of times. Attack prep on that site, especially if you're going in the way that Saturlity chose to, that's when you go to open, okay? That's when you take control of open, you start opening up those hatches, getting vert onto site, and then you can start to impose your will upon what happens in those key thoroughfares that the defense will be using to rotate, to maintain hard angles. They didn't do that until 1 minute 10 was left on the timer, by which they'd taken a number of casualties, whereas Aspire, they'd done their roaming, they got their kills, they drained their time, but then Key, they were allowed to remove themselves from the situation and rotate either away to prepare to roam and engage Saturlity again, or just to get back on site and anchor down. So it's a key thing here where Saturlity, they're not punishing these roamers. Okay, that's, I think, one of the things where they're draining too much time, they're losing too many people, and it's going completely unpunished.
One thing I will note, I don't know if you caught it, but the hatch that was open, that the defense used to fall back, was not the corner hatch and open, the one right next to Red Hall, where you can safely fall back if there's a player inside of server. It was, in fact, the other open area hatch. It was the one which can be seen from archives, but oh my god, early on, Valeriu down from the window over towards top square, but he calls his teammate for help. Wizard swinging out and managing to catch the long-range headshot onto the player, challenging from those square windows, and we will see Zimin go down early on.
Absolutely exceptional.
A little bit of an early start to this round. Owl Aspire looking like they were going to be losing that initial engagement, but in fact, they'll pick up 2 for their trouble. Excellent round so far out of Carroll. Things starting very well for them.
Yeah, the flick, and I think this is also indicative of maybe a little bit of a lack of intelligence gaining from Saturlity, where they didn't see where these defenders were. They didn't predict the flicks. That's very unlucky. But they're not droning and seeing these frost traps. If there's a frost, you've got to be at least checking the floor of every window you jump into. Just jumping in like that is tantamount, it's just not very good, shall we say, as we go down to a 4v1 scenario. Levkushin, they'll take out one. They'll take out the Azami. She's down. She's not out. She is out now. They'll drop, perhaps not entirely intentionally, but they'll wait for a hit to come out. Are Aspire going to be as bloodlust ridden as they were in round 3, taking out their own people? Here comes the rotate from open area. Oh, the rounds will come in. They'll hit Levkushin. They won't go the other way, and now they're going to start finding themselves dragged back into the corner and penned in by these Aspire defenders.
Levkushin just baiting a little bit, taking his time, recognizing that he doesn't really need to engage with any fights. Maybe just discussing things with his teammate about what went wrong in the previous round. Because let's be real, that was a very poor performance out of the attacking side. I just a little bit confused, a little bit disappointed as to what happened and what's going wrong for Saturlity. Because so far, it feels like they just haven't been able to get themselves into the game.
If I was to point at one thing for that last round, I would suggest a poor drone game. The existence of a frost, you've got to discover them, right? you don't necessarily have to red ping them as you maybe would in a casual or a ranked if you're with people that you don't know and you're not necessarily talking to. But what you should be doing is making a note of it and shouting it out to your teammates. I'm not overly convinced that happened because when we saw the jumps in, we didn't see them looking down and popping the frost trap. I keep calling them barricades, the frost traps, as they launched themselves headlong into the building. So we're not seeing that, and we're seeing them maybe get a little bit surprised from angles where you're thinking they shouldn't really be getting surprised by that.
It kind of
So yeah,
felt it kind of felt to me like Saturlity felt like they had an opportunity. I mean, they punched that top square window, they
mhm.
managed to down the Goyo, and it just felt like they overcommitted to trying to finish off that player. You could have just left. You could have just been like, hey, I downed a player, but it's fine. I'm not going to be able to finish him off. But instead, we see that player decide to try and continue to engage. It kind of felt a little greedy out of him, and he ends up being punished for it. And then later on, after they lost that initial pick, it really just seemed like they wanted to rush things along instead of resetting and just trying to play the round in a man disadvantage and still make smart decisions in terms of slowly surrounding the site, taking away the space, using their util. It just seemed like they wanted to rush, take fights, try and engage maybe before they were ready. And I mean, that's really been a theme, it's felt like, for Saturlity throughout this game so far.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think, your analysis is spot on. There's a lack of territory capture, territory control coming out from the attackers in that it feels like maybe they're approaching it with a slightly different mentality to Aspire, where Aspire are playing, okay, room by room, let's pick out the angles that we can hold, let's fall back from the ones that we can't, let's pressure them when they're maybe not expecting it. And I think this is indicative of maybe, as I say, a bit of a poor roam game coming out from Saturlity, where they're not able to correctly identify and place where these traps are, where these operators are, and also a little bit of disjointedness in the attack that we're not seeing a huge amount in the way of refrags, which are absolutely key. If you go a man down, you want to take a man back straight away. Not really seeing that with a Saturlity. But when they are picking up the frags and when they are going ahead, once they've got that numerical advantage, they're actually pretty good, Hyper.
Yeah, and that does really come down to just that one round where Yellow was able to pick up multiple frags entering here through top square. But I will note, I don't think that Saturlity will see the same sort of success they did in the previous round, simply because of the fact that there is an adaptation being brought along by Owl Aspire. Notably, the Fenrir being used along top square here. The gadget itself is pinged right now to slow down that top square push and to give them info on when that Ashe decides to push through. A really good adaptation out of them. And while it will likely be spotted by this IQ on the roof, there's precious little that Saturlity are going to be able to do to remove it.
Yeah, I don't think there's been a huge amount of variation so far in the Saturlity lineup either. So whilst they may be thinking, okay, let's watch out for that next round, those things aren't there next round. We're seeing maybe instead of a Frost, we're seeing a Mozzie. Maybe instead of, other Mute, we're seeing, perhaps we're seeing the Fenrir. And all these things are combining to just keep Saturlity off balance, but there, as you see, the guns are what's important. Owls by hitting their shots. Hako, they'll pick one up onto Valerio, but what is that drop, baby?
Kakper staying himself, keeping himself alive, being aware of the fact that that Skylight drop was a possibility. We do see things even out, turning into a 3v3 with about 1 minute and 20 seconds left in the round. Still absolutely possible for Saturlity, but their position doesn't look phenomenal. That being said, Zivin has managed to sneak his way in towards Archives, so he does take away a lot of the space that is playable for the defense, but so far it's very unlikely that the remainder of these defenders' positions are well known. Carol just creeping around inside of sight, Shady and Calcupper just playing off each other. We do see some Heartbreach coming out to be able to open up those walls. We'll have to see if they're able to spot out these remaining defenders.
Yeah, I mean, this is key. You need to be able to open up these walls. But arguably, it should have been done a minute earlier. But instead, they've been denied the ability to do that by a very highly motivated Owl Aspire defense. So they're so late in the round that anything they do now, by its very nature, is going to be rushed. And this has been a recurring theme that we've seen so far. Lebkuchen, they're peeking the hole. Carol also going to peek the hole as Bandit. Oh, and they don't get away with it. The first shot was wayward. The second one wasn't, as we see them crawl in. Oh no, you can't be looking away at such a crucial moment.
Everything's seemingly falling apart for Owl Aspire, but we do see Kakper still alive up on the top floor, does manage to hit the corner drop, and on a quad, he's good for the ace here. If Lukukin is not able to hit the headshot, a little bit of an engagement, but neither of them take each other out. And with just 3 seconds remaining, all you have to do is be patient. Kakper not feeding for the ace, recognizing the fact that it's more important to win the round. And instead of getting 5 kills, he'll send his team all the way to 5 rounds.
That is incredible. Incredible. Just diligence, determination, patience.
Personally,
sacrifice.
I'm peeking.
Not going for the ace. Not going for the ace. You put gun to your head, bombs in, diffusers in hand, 20 seconds on the clock. What you do? You're peeking that every time. That's really, really good. God, there's a word for it, and damn me if I can remember it. But it's very well disciplined. There we go. It's very well disciplined, just to seal out the rounds. Because I mean, being 4 kills up on there, you would say you back yourself, but then not committing to it by saying, actually, I'm just gonna let the round time out. I mean, yeah, that's discipline. I just can't get my head around. And like I say, it comes at a time where Aspire, they're very much in the ascendancy. Saturlity, they're doing some incredibly strange stuff. Hi Bear, walk me through this. What was happening with that sky drop onto stairs?
Honestly, I don't hate the sky drop. I understand the thought process. I think that what Saturlity are expecting is that player, the bandit, is staying upstairs to try and fight a little bit longer, and the Skylight player just wants to get involved with the fight. I get it. I mean, not maybe the best timing. Maybe you go for that a little bit earlier on as your teammates are pushing in through stock instead of after the bandit has already fallen back. And credit to Owl Aspire, like they recognized the fact that there was that skylight drop coming in. I believe the player, I think it was Bandit, was droned earlier on in the round and knows at that point, oh, there's somebody on skylight. There's somebody who's planning to do a skylight drop, and just remains aware of that throughout all the fights that go on in the mid round. So I don't despise the drop there. And I will note, Saturlity did an excellent job of kind of creating a little bit of a confusion in that late round, making Aspire kind of second guess where the push was going to be coming from. We saw Bandit getting arguably a little over aggressive and swinging that quad wall, giving himself up for free. But it doesn't matter because Kakper, through some miracle play, manages to sneak up Marble completely unspotted, no drones to watch that flank, and then pick up both a player from the hatch before he drops, then managing to drop the hatch without being punished, then managing to take out the planter, and then still managing to stay alive all the way until that timer expired. I mean, excellent play out of him, but that's some serious mental errors out of Saturlity to enable that and to allow it to happen.
Yeah, I think every team, they need a couple of different things. They need good strategies. They need communications. They need the wherewithal to put it all together on the day. But sometimes when the chips are down, the cards on the table, your back's against the wall and the timer's counting down. You just need a player who can click on heads, and Casper absolutely delivered there until they chose not to, and that was still for the benefit of the team to win the round out. So I mean, it's fantastic. It's really good. Dominant gameplay, 5-1 for Owl Aspire. We are going to be taking a very short break just while we sort out something in the game. So don't go anywhere because we still have Saturlity's defensive half coming up. See you in a second.
And defuse as many bombs as they can.
And we are back now for this second half of this match between Owl Aspire and Saturlity. A little bit of a rough start out of Saturlity so far, but they were starting this game on the unfavored side. So we'll see if they're able to run a couple of rounds back now that they're on the defense. Owl Aspire up 5-1. It is their map pick, but things not looking too great for the team that's now on the defense.
Bomb located by attackers.
Yeah, I mean, you'd argue that their only round so far came off the back of, yes, them creating a lot of confusion, but then also Aspire taking the odd choice to shoot their own people. So 5-1 it is rather than 6-0. So, they have picked up a round, but they've got it all to do now if they don't want to go another map down. Saturlity, obviously, they came in as Team 27 originally. They, I believe, they were granted a quick reprieve through the group stage after a team dropped out. I might be incorrect on that, but they weren't very. They got in by the skin of their teeth essentially. So they're very much here to do a rags to riches tale. Of course, I bet our last champions in season 9. They didn't even qualify for the season. They were granted permission to come in and play after a team that had qualified wasn't able to actually form a team and compete in every single game day. So they went on to become champions. So rags to riches is entirely possible, Hyber.
It's always possible. And, especially in some of these tournaments, like teams will put in the work. They'll come together, they'll find themselves a roster, and then they'll put in the work afterwards. So in situations where they do qual and through maybe less than ideal circumstances, but they are in the league, that's when they really take the time to lock in, like figure out what their play style is, how they want to approach things. And, obviously that is what we saw last season, but something's telling me that we're not seeing that so far from Saturlity. Could see this be a change. Maybe they're just not super comfortable on bank. This isn't their map pick after all, but so far I am a little less than impressed from this team.
Yeah, I think that's very fair to say. But then also, if you're not banning out a map, one does assume that you do have a certain level of comfort with it. So there's every chance to ban it out beforehand. So it's a little bit of a reprieve, but there's also you should be competing maybe a little stronger on this. But then you can't deny Casper has been a bit of a hero player. There's been a very slow attack, hasn't it, Hyber? Whilst we're almost with a minute left on the clock, ticking away, we're still 5v5.
I will note, it's been both a very slow attack, but also an attack that's not really facing any kind of a roam presence. Look at this lineup out of Saturlity, running the Echo, running the Tachanka, running the Smoke, and the Goyo. This is all stall util. There is no roam going on. And I'm starting to get worried with that timer getting down to the last minute, whether or not Aspire will be able to actually get into sites.
Yeah, especially with the Tachanka on the board, played by Lebkushin. Lebkushin obviously having, a lot of kills from Saturlity's perspective. The smoke on blue stairs, classic strategy. Used to be paired with a shield and a Jaeger, or 2 ADSs up there. But it seems like the Saturlity strat is literally deny, deny, deny. And it's working so far. 30 seconds left. Owlspire, they don't even look close to getting on site. They still got to get on, either frag out, or somehow get the plant down.
We do start to get down in these last couple of seconds. 20 seconds remaining in the round, and we still haven't even seen them manage to clear up blue stairs. We will see Casper and Wizard pick up a kill apiece, and they do manage to get into sight, despite all the stall util on side. Hako is injured. LeBlue is trying to push through, but he sprints right in front of the planter without taking him down. Suddenly, it's just Zibin left alive, up with the hatch control, managing to get an angle onto the diffuser, but it's already been planted, and Casper managing to pick up that last kill through the reverse vertical up the hatch. What did we just witness, Bacon?
That was fantastic. It was such a slow round, but I think a lot of it was because there wasn't really any engagements going on throughout the map. There wasn't really any scattered individual incidents of 1v1s, 2v1s. There was none of that. It didn't seem like there was a roam presence. It was very slow, and I think part of that is because Aspire, they were setting up for an execute, and that was a really nice execute, because what they did is, whilst they were baiting out the smoke, to use all of his charges before the end of the round, they actually took the chance to make a little bit of noise, get the door open, put a few shots in, shots enough to cover the sound of someone dropping through that Skylight Square hatch. They went around, they opened up the angle by removing that presence on blue stairs. That allowed the Blitz, that allowed the Twitch, and I think one other person also to just storm this server room. Now, at the same time, they opened up the hatch above this A site that you can see there, which was largely unguarded, smoked everything off, and just stormed it. And when I say stormed it, Hyber, they piled in there. Lebkucha managed to sneak through the smoke, but was immediately dispatched, and those kills, they came thick and fast. Not only did they win on frags, they also get the diffuser down. Absolutely fantastic.
5 seconds to go.
Well, they were forced to get that diffuser down. There was no time left on the board when they went for that hatch drop. They were clearing out blue stairs with less than 10 seconds on the clock. I couldn't believe my eyes when I saw that Case even managed to start being stuck, and I'm still baffled seeing a 6-1 on that scoreboard. I thought for sure that Saturlity were going to lock that one down.
I mean, I was sure. I was right there with you. I was right there with you. I was like, "What's happening here?" Saturlity, you know, they're just denying it, and their setup was really, really nice. That's the thing. But it just got the lock was picked. You know, they had the round stolen from out their pockets by an Aspire team. That I mean, that was just really wonderful to watch. And here we are, match point. Leverkusen getting taken off the board by a charging Blitz. Obviously, that shield making them incredibly difficult, and the pistol not too shabby with that either. Is old Carol.
Worrying things here for Saturlity. Last round, they were in an even better position than this. With no roam, they managed to... Aspire didn't really go to engage with the site until sub 30 seconds on the clock. This time, they decide to try a little bit of a roam. But with 2 minutes left on the board, they managed to pick up the initial engagement. They find themselves the first kill, but notably, Kamiki is still roaming a little bit over towards Beepers. He will be spotted on the Twitch drone, but it does not matter. Vazzy taken down despite having info on that Warden's position. But now he's isolated. Where do you go from here?
I mean, that's exactly the thing. Obviously, the hatch is sealed, so he can just start retreating backwards down blue stairs. But here we go. He's going to try and take out the Blitz. The Blitz will charge in. They'll almost cop it, but they get flanked out themselves by Wizard. Blitz lives to fight another day. Down a little bit of HP, but they've still got a hefty shield behind them. And they, crucially, now have unfettered access to blue stairs.
No impact out of the roam there. Kamiki does manage to pick up 1 kill for himself, but I'm a little bit concerned. I don't have a lot of faith in this Saturlity defense, in them managing to hold this attacking onslaught, the Grimbies, the flashbangs, the Blitz sending it through. That Aspire has brought along.
I mean, you can see there. You can see there, Hyper. Look to the right of your screen. You can see the drone. It's there. It's looking at him. They know exactly where this smoke is, and he's doing nothing. He's completely unaware.
Granted, with just 40 seconds left on the board, we will see the Grimbies start to fly through, but the fights are going to have to be a little bit delayed. The Goyo canisters being popped, being used to slow down this attack. So, a little bit of a util exchange. These players do stay alive, and as we get down into these last couple of seconds, the fights are going to have to come through, despite the fact that those Goyo canisters have not all been popped. This one looking to get messy. Blitz sending it into sight. Echo taken down. Wizard managing to trade 3v2. And fights going over towards Red Hall, towards gold. The Garage Lurk finding some impact. Yellow trying to use that long angle, that long line of sight to find himself some picks, but there's only one player left alive, and Wizard with the cover through Red Hall, picking up the Echo, trying to get away, and also managing to find the Dock, sprinting to try and take out that planter, and we will see Owl Aspire take their map choice 7-1.
Dominant. Absolutely dominant. I mean, that was a fantastic performance, I think. You can't take anything away from them, can you? That was a absolutely fantastic round coming out from Aspire. Obviously, you've got Casper, the hero of the hour, making that clutch, right away back in round 5. But I mean, where do you go from there? Where do you go? Because that was, I mean, even the round that Saturlity picked up, Hyper, it was a little bit of a fluke.
I think where you go from there is to go get a little drink of water, have a little bit of a reset before moving on to your own map pick. That'll be Consulate coming up soon. And while the players go and take a little break themselves, why don't you guys go and take a second, relax, grab yourself a snack, some water, whatever, and be back in no time to join us for map 2, Consulate, after a short little break. Welcome back to the ESA Cup Season 10 for our match right here between Owl Aspire and Saturlity Esports. We're going to be getting to Consulate in just a second after we witnessed a little bit of a drubbing out of Aspire on their map pick of Bank. Saturlity Aspire not having the best game so far.
Yeah, they really handed it to them, didn't they? And they really showed why they picked that map. It was it's almost difficult to watch in a way, I suppose. Saturlity, they do get the gift of having their very first, I suppose, round one of the ESA Cup so far. But even that was gifted to them by Aspire firing on their own people.
Yeah,
Whilst
and
we're
it's
here, we are just waiting for the match to get started. All the players are assembling in the lobby. Let's have a little look over towards the bracket, how these teams got here so far. So we are here, as you see, in below there in that Northern 1 bracket. Both these teams losing, of course, last week. As I've mentioned, Saturlity lost in quite emphatic fashion to MVG, and Aspire lost to Team Sync. Team Sync and MVG actually played together last week, where Sync took a 2-1 victory over the reigning champions.
Yeah, Team Sync, obviously one of the favorites to go pretty far in the ESA Cup Season 10. They've been doing phenomenally so far. So not super surprising seeing Aspire in the lower bracket after having lost that match, but they're kind of making up for it this week, looking very, very good so far. Picking up a 7-1 is not something you see every day in Siege.
No, I mean, but a 7-1, it's maybe less embarrassing for Saturlity than their previous results. So we'll nip that in the bud right there. I suggest. Um, the match is just now starting, so we are going to be hopping into the action now as we get ready, Hyber, for this ban phase. We're going to be going to Consulate today, as you say, bit of an ever present in the map pool. Walk us through these operator bans for us.
Yeah, Consulate's a map which again sees a lot of value inside of shields being brought along. So I would not be surprised at all seeing like a Monty, a Blackbeard taken off the board. Obviously, those operators super powerful, super meta right now. And even though they were both banned last map, we did see a lot of a lot of blitz being brought as an alternative to those two extremely powerful popular shield operators. But a little bit of a different ban here, starting things off with the Buck. Very interesting.
It's not an operator you typically see banned out, is it? Because a Book, I think they bring that ability to do vertical upwards in a way that most operators can't. They just can't. Even defender sided, you need to utilize an impact or a C4 or something like that to truly be able to do it. But with the quick interchange between their shotgun and their rifle, they can actually pretty effectively attack these defenders from below. Blitz,
Yeah.
Clash, not really too surprised.
Notably, along with that Buck, the reason that you see that operator banned out is specifically to do with the upstairs site, that CEO and projector defense, where what teams like to do is attempt a CEO window plant, rappelling inside to that corner right next to the window and trying to attempt a plant just kind of like tucked right behind that bookshelf. But the thing is, what defenders can do is they can stand inside of CEO and use the angle that they get to toss C4s without exposing themselves to the window. So what Buck provides is the ability to open up the floor where those defenders would stand to toss out that utility to deny the plant, making it much more difficult to stop that window plant from coming through. So that's the idea behind that ban. We'll see if it pans out. I imagine this is in order to make the defense a little bit easier here for Owl Aspire.
Absolutely. Do you know, as we're talking about this, as we're getting into it, as the round started just there, Hyber, I grabbed my mouse and I put my fingers automatically over WASD because I was like, yeah, I'm ready. I'm so ready. Let's do this. Forgetting for a moment that I am in fact casting it and not playing it, probably because I'm nowhere near good enough. But yeah, I mean, let's get into it, Hyber, because there's a lot of things that I would say have been left on the board. I'm still curious as to why Aspire banned that tuber out last round on what I would say is probably not a super breachy pick, but there we go. Not really a breachy pick here either. Fenrir getting taken off the board whilst they themselves used it to great effect previously. They'll be defending against Saturlity. It's up to them to go and take the initiative. They can't just sit back and pick up rounds. They've got to go and take rounds.
That being said, being the ones taking the initiative did not help them very much in the previous map, and it will continue not to help them as Valerio will be the first one to pick up a kill inside of Consulate, finding a pick onto the ace, the only hard breacher brought along by this attacking side. Talk about a terrible pick.
Yeah, I mean, also, the person that's playing them as well, Lebkushin, a very, very prolific fragger for Saturlity last round. He was, I would say, probably the anchor around which their attack was typically centered. They'll get taken off the board. Carol getting taken out by a lovely flick from Yellow there, themselves no slouch. So we'll be in a 4v4 situation. I don't see a huge amount in the way of attacking prep complete, so maybe a little behind Saturlity. They did struggle with this back on bank, where their attacks were maybe a little slower than they had to be. Same with Aspire, but Aspire has an execute at the end.
Well, I will note that this has been a little bit better of an attack in the mid round than we've seen from Saturlity at any point throughout this game so far. Maybe having a little bit of a better understanding on Consulate as opposed to what they had on bank. They'll continue to drone forward, get a little bit more info on this setup, but notably, Aspire seem to have completely backed off, giving them space in towards Checkers, in towards Projector, and we could potentially see a plant start to come through.
Yeah, I mean, I think they still need to really dig into the rounds. These are Aspire players. They are absolutely screwed in, I suppose. They're dug in like a tick there. And it seems like Saturlity, they don't really have a way to get them out of there. Valerio, they'll pick up a second kill, as we can see there. That Scrizzy, they're doing a little bit of a sneaky thing. They got through to site. They're picking out different angles and keeping these Aspire defenders on their toes.
But they have control of sight. Saturlity, as soon as this Goyo canister fades away, they're in a position to go for this plant. All they need to do is hold the position. But as I say that, Valerio pushing forward, managing to find himself a pick onto the insurance. That player in towards long desk. We will see the last Goyo canister get popped. Ton of damage on the Hako. He does manage to get the case down, but the shotgun swinging around downs the player Valerio to finish him off. That is 3 for him on the round, 2 for Wizard. And all they need to do now is wait for a little minute for that Goyo fire to fade. Apologies, and they'll be able to push forward, hold F, and stick that defuse.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting there, isn't it? I'm really impressed with how Aspire decided to play that. They locked down the site in such a way that there could only be a nice little group photo there. They locked down the site in such a way that once the plant went down, that was the info for them, right? Because they knew from there exactly where these Saturlity players were. They knew that one was sitting in the middle of site, nestled in amongst the tables, holding the angle, and the other one was planting right back there in the corner next to the hallway. So from there, they could just retake super, super quickly, and they did. They allowed site control to be yielded onto that site, only to then retake it immediately. I think that's actually really impressive. It's reminiscent of the tactics you maybe saw back in World War II, kind of elastic defenses where you yield a little bit, you envelop, and you eliminate. Very, very good play from Aspire there.
I will note that I was definitely not seeing those tactics employed during the Second World War personally. But
there was a couple. There was less Goyo canisters.
Yeah, and maybe not quite so much C4.
Not so much C4, no, and I don't think it was any Legion mines either. But I think the underlying principle is sound. I'll go back. Listen, let me go cook. Let me go. Let me go work on that theory a little bit more, and we'll come back to you with a better call, shall we?
I'm curious if there's a single soldier in history who's been taken down by a bear trap in the middle of a battlefield.
Attackers have located a bomb. Attackers objective.
Fun but sad facts that we've seen come through. Just while we're goofing off really high, but fun but sad fact, Saturlity statistically so far, and this is a record that they're really going to want to get rid of, they're currently having the worst record of any team that has competed in ESA. Previously, that was held by Team Wellesley, who had taken 3 rounds across the course of 2 different maps, so a differential of 3 to 14. So far, Saturlity, they went 14-0, and now they are 18-1.
It's definitely been a rough start to the stage for them, and they're going to want to start to change their fortunes. They had a bit of an opportunity last round, but as you noted, some really excellent play out of Aspire, understanding that they didn't need to contest the front of site. They could simply play their win condition, force Saturlity to engage with the plant, pop those Goyo canisters to deny the plant, and push forward off the back of the info of that case going down. We'll see a bit of an early engagement here. C4 tossed out that connector window. No damage done onto the player over towards Suicide, but Wizard elsewhere will push forward into Checkers Hall, pick up a kill for himself. Traded by Screezy, but Valerio is there, ready to support his teammate. Casper picking up one for himself. And as these players continue to fight, the advantage is really landed in the favor of Aspire.
Yeah, you can see there the roam clearing, it took part, but then Aspire, they picked up the refrags. Oh, what are you doing, Valero? You can't be caught napping on your phone like that. They'll be taken off the board, and that'll reduce the deficit a little bit, but Saturlity, I don't think they're fully aware of everyone still on this top floor. You can see just nestled there.
Oh my god!
What the flick?
What do you mean? Haku's spinning around, hitting a headshot on the Casper, running in the corner. Maybe this round isn't quite over yet as we head down into the minute mark.
That was filthy. Do you think you heard me when I said they've got the worst records and took it personally? Oh my word.
Check him PC or something. What is going on? Goyo canisters will pop as these players start to get ready to approach this site, start thinking about their drop, but they'll think better of it, knowing that they don't want to drop into fire and they want to get themselves into a slightly better position before choosing to attempt to go for this plan.
I'm still stunned from that Hako flick. You're going to need to talk, mate. I need to catch my breath.
Position noted of one of these defending players, but it seems like they might not quite be aware of the second one. He's simply holding that hatch. That's Shady, who's sitting gun trained, ready to engage with this player. Hako goes for the drop, but Shady is ready for it, and the last player alive, Hako, stuck outside the building, looking to jump inside of that piano closet, gonna try and pre-fire through the feet holes. Does get the headshot onto the first, but Shady is ready to engage with the second. Holding that angle as he pushes through the window. Managing to win the round, but my god, it got close.
Yeah, whilst, there was a couple of heroics up on that top floor there from Hako, it was, in the end, Aspire setting up the angles, playing Siege and playing the tactics, playing the angles that really won it out. A bit of a better intel game from Saturlity, but unfortunately that top floor roam clear, it just took so much of a toll, so much time, and then they only really had 20 seconds to try and engage the site itself. That's nowhere near enough time. So, yeah, once again,
was even
Aspire.
Protect your bombs from
Man.
do you think she was even aiming?
I don't think, for the benefit of good sportsmanship, for the benefit of a good broadcast, I'm not going to answer that question either. I would probably ask that question about the whole series so far, but that's another matter entirely.
Oh my. Saturlity continuing their negative record, looking to set new heights, or rather new lows, for the ESA Cup. We do see Aspire moving on to their offsite, the third site in their rotation. That will be basement. In my opinion, the weakest site on console. I actually think that split site is quite a bit better than this basement garage bomb site, but obviously
I do love a good split
this particular team.
I do love a good split site.
I do love a good split site. Oh, it's fun to play. But potentially the best chance for Saturlity to get themselves that important attacking round that they'll need if they really want a chance inside this game.
Yeah, this site, it can be very difficult, really, to hold, because this is where I think Aspire's playstyle is going to very much benefit them. They've got this extended roam where they're looking to engage these attackers as they breach into the building, but then they've got a lot of places where they can collapse too. So they're not going to be forced into kind of holding directly on the site. That is ridiculous that they allow Carol just to pop out and pick off a couple of people like that. I'm not really sure where we can go with this.
Was that through the floor in the window? That was through the floor in the window.
It was.
Are you kidding me? Well, Carol managing to find the openers for his team, that being the Maverick and the Monty, the two most important operators in this lineup. I don't want to call the round over already with still almost 2 minutes on the board, but I can't imagine Saturlity have the operators that they'll... You see him! You see him? No! Valkyrie peeking around. Carol looking to continue to engage, eventually taken down by Ziven. Lucky for him. Swinging around and picking up that Valkyrie, solo roaming in towards Piano. Making things a little bit closer here for Saturlity, but still not looking promising, especially if the remainder of these Aspire players simply return back to site, decide to play a little bit more disciplined.
Do you know what sent, like, the corner piece of that Carol roam was, where she picked up those two kills? That was just good comms. Good droning,
Yes.
good use of Pulse, good comms from Pulse to say, here they are, There's your angle. Go get them. Valerio,
come
they'll pick
on.
up Ziven. That's one more off the board. Grim no longer able to use their bees to try and track people. And whilst they have established vertical control, Allospire, we've shown, they've shown us several times. We've seen them play the objective. They're not, they're not going to be drawn into this. I need to get the frag. Well, it doesn't hurt as the trade will come out from Valerio. Aspire, they won't mind that. They're still 3-1 to the good.
Just the straight trade out of those two players. And as it goes through, Lebkuchen looking to try and find himself an entry into sight. Does push forward in behind that yellow pillar. But Vasi just looking to stunt on him. Has the auto shotgun, but decides, I don't need that. Pulls out the deagle and decides to take the fight with that instead. Winning it out. And a flawless rotation already out of Owl Aspire.
And I think this plays into the mentality game because you can see Allospire in a competitive environment whenever I've played previously or whenever I've spoken to those who've competed on the stage and things like that. One thing they say is that it's incredibly serious and you'll go into it with, these plans and these strats and everything will be filling your head. You'll Siege is a game, but you won't necessarily be having fun with it. You're competing, you're fighting. I think you can see there the mentality from Allospire is that they're still competing, but they're letting themselves have that fun. They're letting themselves have that little bit of, we've got this. Let's, now we can think about stunting on it. Now we can think about being a little bit, a little bit of showmanship about it. And I think that can be quite a dangerous mental switch. But it's one that so far they're not being picked up and punished on. We can see here they're going to go to that top floor where they were back in round 1. This is where they allowed site control to go to Saturlity. They yielded that kind of primary site in the middle. They pulled back to CEO. They allowed Saturlity to plant, and then they enveloped them and eliminated them.
Notably, this was actually a pretty good attack in the mid-round out of Saturlity. They did lose the opener. Right, we did see, I believe it was the ace of Screezy going down very, very early on, but it didn't end up mattering too much since Ace managed to get the breach open, tossed out those charges, those Selmas on the projector wall before being taken down. And then Saturlity were able to trade back and find 2 picks for themselves, giving themselves the overall advantage as they began to approach site. But it didn't matter at the end of the day. They just were not able to capitalize. So we'll have to see them do a little bit better this time if they want to get that round over the line.
So I said last time that every team, you need good comms, you need good strat, you need all the rest of it, but you also need a hero player. Casper's been kept really quiet so far. They're 1-1 over the course of 3 rounds. That's quiet for Casper, or for what we saw. But Valerio, they've stepped up. They've been the one to play. See Casper being taken down by Ziven there. Saturlity, first time they've had the numerical advantage so far in this map. Will they be able to use it, High Bear? That's the question.
Casper seeming to get a little bit over ambitious in that position. Screezy managing to pick 2 up for himself over towards the, I believe it was through the breach. Traded back eventually by Carolyn. Wizard pushing forward, unafraid to take fight, managed to collect 1 for himself, but suddenly with a minute and a half, 90 seconds on the board, this has turned into a 1v3. We will see a little bit of a reset as those Goyo fires are out, slowing down this approach out of the attack. But as those fade, Carol is forced to engage to try and attempt this clutch, and Ziven will be standing there waiting, giving his team the 2nd round that they've managed to pick up so far in this ESA Cup.
And that's a really good response to how they lost round 1. That's a really good response. It was a fast attack. They weren't punished for being slow or anything like that. And then also Aspire, this is where that mental switch I was talking about comes into it. They started over peaking. They get a little bit overconfident. Now they can afford to drop a round or 2, of course, because this is their defender half. They've won half their rounds, and they've got a pretty dominant lead so far in terms of the series. They're 1-0 up. Their round differential's insane. But they now need to say, okay, we've had a bit of fun. We then dropped a round. Time to lock in. Yeah, let's go back out there. Let's go finish it. And they need to make sure that they get that kind of attitude in and quickly, because if they start to drop another round, that's when the tide of momentum can start shifting against you, High Bear. And if they get into that, that can start to spiral. It can fell the biggest and best teams on the stage.
It really felt a little bit over ambitious out of Allospire. Like, I don't want to take things away from Saturlity here, but in my mind, that really doesn't come down to them playing particularly well in that round. It comes down to Casper, for example, deciding to swing a long-ranged engagement with a shotgun, or an ace managing to pick up 2 kills from outside a breach that the defense really doesn't need to swing. Things that just are very classic mistakes of overconfidence. And I really don't think that Aspire are going to continue to have those issues. They want to win this game. They want it to be over quick. They don't want to risk this going to map 3. So I imagine that we'll see them chill out a little bit, hold their angles, hold their crosses, and really play this game to try and win it.
Yeah, so we're going to be on the same site again. I'll Aspire. I quite like this attitude where, no, we know we can beat them here. We made the mistakes, and it's kind of a statement where they say to themselves, yo, let's win there because we gave them that, rather than saying we can't win there, let's go somewhere else. So that's a key mental choice to say, we're going here.
Yellow will start with an early entry down below, managing to get himself inside of Piano. He could go for a lurk up Yellow when Aspire are not expecting it. And do note that he did not attempt this lurk last round, so it's very possible that Aspire just do not anticipate it. And as the dope call comes out, we could see him looking to get aggressive. For now, slowly walking up the stairs. Will he encounter any barbed wire, any utility? He will, but he will not encounter a player. And notably, Carol has already shut off his phone. This position most likely unknown by the Dokkaebi. He creeps forward, looking to try and engage with this fight. Slowly, carefully, measured. They simply take their time, refusing to engage. But elsewhere, Valerio will be the one to find the opener for himself. Twitch drone coming through, finding a little bit of info, and the second dope call will come through. The Legion shotgun so dangerous around this long desk position, and Valerio, or Yellow, apologies, looking to try and push forward, but he will be taken down. Carol ready for him. But we do see them continuing to take space away on the admin side of the map. Look at this, Haku already inside of sight, but he isn't able to do much with this position. The Goyo inside of the box position will be revealed, and look, Haku, excellent job out of him in the forward position, managing to find the Goyo trying to escape. Are there any Goyo canisters? Doesn't seem to be, and Haku going massive in this round, picking up 3 for himself, and it's only Casper with the pistol trying to find an angle onto the planter in that deep corner, but after the reload is completed, Haku will be ready and will take that player out.
2 rounds in a row.
Looking better.
This is a step change in how we probably predicted this to go after that first map. I mean, it's really good. It is their map pick. You're not wrong. Aspire, they started very strongly, but then I still wonder if they've snapped back too far the other way. I didn't really see that much in the way of an off-site presence. And one of the big things that they've had so far this game, in order to keep Saturlity's attack off balance, is the off-site presence, where, even if they do lose a person or 2, they're picking off key Saturlity attackers before they get anywhere close to the site. They weren't able to do that there. And that's twice in a row that they've lost that site. And now they're conceding, okay, we couldn't win that. Let's go elsewhere. I do think it's perhaps insanity to go to a site that you've lost twice and try it again. So they decided not to do that. They've come down to Piano and Exhibits.
This round, crucially, came really close the last time the teams went here, but not necessarily off the back of any excellent play out of Saturlity. It kind of felt, again, more like we were seeing mistakes out of Aspire, notably that player prone behind the CEO desk, another one deciding to lurk in the tucked corner right next to that connector window. Positions that aren't super, tradable or powerful, just spots where you kind of rat, hope the attack doesn't spot you, hope the attack doesn't check their corners, and it's not my favorite type of siege. I like to see players play off each other, use their utility, understand their win condition more so than attempt those rat plays. And we've seen Owl Aspire are a team who can pull that off. I'd like to see them continue with that sort of play style, looking to support each other, play their trades, and just play some really solid siege in order to close out this half.
Yeah, and I think one key thing there that I think is really in Saturlity's benefit is in that last round in particular. They didn't have the first kill, they didn't have the numerical advantage, but they were able to pull it back, and that's very, very different to how we saw them playing previously. We are going to see very much an extensive top floor presence here. Vertical gameplay, absolutely crucial on this site, and Wizard, they'll be the first to pick up a kill. They'll take out the Sivan, and that's your fragger off the board. That's your fragging operator gone.
Vigil position undroned early on and managing to find an Ash for his troubles. Position likely known now, but it doesn't really matter for Wizard as he can simply lurk away, use his gadget to continue to hide, and nobody on Saturlity is going to clear that player. Instead, opting to engage with his top floor defense, but with all the mirror windows, with all the crossfires, it's very unlikely that they'll be able to find any impact. Wizard continuing to be a menace down below, finding another at the bottom of the Visa stairs, and he'll just continue to march forward. Position now known, a ping on his position, but it doesn't matter as he's able to take out the Ram. Excellent crosshair placement out of him. Apologies, not the Ram, the Twitch. I'm mixing up these drone operators. But regardless, that's going to be another dominant, flawless round out of Owl Aspire to send us into the second half with a 4-2 lead.
Yeah, that's a very good victory. And then it's also a victory which I think, it was needed to just to stem that little bit of momentum that Saturlity were building up. You can't let any team be them the best or the worst in the world. You can't let any team build up momentum on you, because that suddenly becomes unassailable. So that was very good, and to do it with such a flawless round is good. I would question, however, I would question the operators that were chosen by Saturlity for that play, because they chose a lineup where the only real operators able to do any vert were Ash, obviously with her operator charges, and then I believe one of them had breach charges as well. That's
Was there
it.
not a Ram?
There was not a Ram.
I was so sure there was a Ram. That's
There
my
wasn't.
bad.
There was no Ram. So.
Ah.
In that case, on a site where it's all about vertical gameplay, their plan from the start, Saturlity, must have been to go out there, take vert control away from the defenders, but then not really use it in any significant way, because the defenders, they can open up the floor when they need. They can just use their impact grenades or whatever. They didn't need to do that in the end, because obviously they held it for so long. But Saturlity, their plan was to do a roam clear and then transition down to the middle. And I'm wondering, with how slow their attacks have been so far, whether or not it would have been better for them to go with a Ram and things like that. Of course, I say all this completely hypothetically, however, it would have been far better if they'd hit their shots. But theoretically, I don't see where the strategy was in their operator picks.
Nothing coming down to hitting their shots, though. It's like they seem completely unaware of the positioning of a lot of these defensive players. Spire managing to find an opener with a Vigil inside of Visa, and then just continuing to follow up with players behind mirror windows who are going unpunished as they swing out all the way into Projector directly in front of some of the windows. We'll see a little bit of an engagement here early on. Screezy deciding to try and take a fight with the person punching over the castle barricade, but seemingly caught unprepared. Screezy with the super shorty out, not checking the top of the window, looking at the bottom, just kind of looking all over the place, and he'll throw his life away for free. Now, Flores drones coming out to continue to get rid of some of this bulletproof utility. The Kukin trying to engage with it, but things are slowly starting to collapse for this defensive side. They're already down in numbers. They've already lost control of admin, and things just continue to get worse and worse for this defensive side. Candelas will come out, clearing out this long desk position, completely taking it away as Carol pushes forward. Bassett will find one for himself, and the fights just continue to come through over towards long desk, leaving just one player left alive. Yellow, ironically, not over towards Yellow, stuck on those Visa stairs, but in such an overwhelming disadvantage, there isn't a damn thing he can do.
There's so many things that I love about that round. I really love the droning game that they played. The intel game, flawless. So many drones, so little time. They knew exactly where these defenders were. I really love the interplay between, we saw the Flores going in, pushing operators out of that front desk area, out of that reception on top floor. And then the Flores not only used to open up that castle barricade, but then also the Ying with them to force that counterplay, throwing in a load of Candelas, just to make a huge amount of noise. Not only does that distract the defenders nearby, who either need to look at it and get absolutely flashbanged, or look away from where there's presumably going to be an operator running in the moment, but also it makes so much noise that those calls are going to go out to the rest of the team, both through audio calls and through communication, to say, this is happening over here, and that's going to prove a distraction for the rest of the execute. One thing I've noticed with Owl Aspire on attack, when they've completed their attacking prep, they're really good at coordinating and saying, everyone ready, 3, 2, 1, go, and everything just kicking off at once. They're really, really strong at that, and I love things like that.
It's awesome. They really don't let up. As soon as the fights start to come through, everyone's on the same page. Everyone is fighting. But one thing I really want to highlight about that last round has less to do with Aspire and more to do with a lack of fight in Saturlity. There were 3 Saturlity defenders over towards admin at the start of that previous round, and they lost control of admin within the first 45 seconds. That's terrible if you're Saturlity. You have 5 reinforcements, 3 players invested over towards that side of the map. You need to be better. That's where your resources are invested, and we just don't see them managing to capitalize on the positions where their players are being played. They need to be better about that going forward. Otherwise, I fear that things will just continue to collapse for this defensive side.
Yeah, they've got a lot of rounds to win and not a huge amount of time to do it in because they are, 2 rounds away from losing the series. Owlspire, very dominant performance in the last 2 rounds. 2 flawless rounds in a row, High Bear, as they look to add a third to that number down on the basement side.
There is the Solus roaming upstairs, but notably, Owlspire are choosing not to really engage with the roam whatsoever, opting instead for a direct-to-sight in through these lockers positions, using the Monty to try and wrest control of the long hallways away from the defense. They've used the Mav, opened up some head holes in this single panel now with angles in towards kitchen. It is possible for them to start holding these, looking to collect some players, but I don't really see anyone holding the flank, and things could start to get dangerous as this hatch in the hallway starts to pop, but no! I jinx it as it happens. Wizard with the reverse angle through the vert, catching the first bullet headshot onto Yellow, and Yellow, having had a pretty good game on Bank, has had absolutely nothing he's been able to get done so far. Some grenade sail out, forcing Screezy back a little bit, little ways. Monty continuing to pressure the hallways. All these positions of the defenders are known. They're trying to fight, but so far they're not able to find a damn thing. Lukukin looking to re-engage, attempt this flank once again. Will Aspire be aware of it? A little bit of damage exchange, pre-fires being sent out through those holes, but so far nothing's been found. And oh my goodness, it looks like they might just be aware of this player on the hatch as Shady continues to push upstairs, looking to try and find himself the pick. Wizard will be the one to take him down. Excellent awareness out of Aspire, leaving just Zivin left alive, swinging out, picks up 1 for his trouble, but Wizard is there for the trade, dropping the hatch after dropping his opponent's body on it a few moments earlier. And with the info from the Monty, another dominant round comes through on the side of Aspire.
Yeah, and there's not really many more words for it. It's dominant, and I really like that strategy that they had, where they said, especially so on that particular objective, you can just push. As daft as that sounds, there's not really any vertical gameplay that can be done upon you except through the hatches. So you just need to, be wary of them and know when they get opened. You can just use that kind of brute force. Here's a Monty, look at him, we're gonna go, you know what I mean? You can just take, as you say, a very Monty-led direct action approach to attacking this basement site. And, Saturlity, to their credit, they're gonna take us there again. Because it was closer than the previous 2 rounds, but at this point, I think Aspire, they've locked back in. I bet. No, they've not fallen afoul of completely going down that we're having fun, we're not playing comp attitude that I feared they may have. They have come back to it, and it seems like Saturlity don't have an answer.
10 seconds left before insertion.
Worse than not having an answer, they just reinforced the hatch. That was pretty much the only way that they were able to really threaten the Owl Aspire attack last round. It's reinforced this time. They had 2 players peek it and die last round. Obviously, they didn't find the impact that they were looking for. But I'm a little bit confused as to why you'd reinforce that hatch after having had that be your only real avenue to contest the attacking side. I mean, I guess it's going to work out. In this case, it seems like Aspire are going for an opposite side take, not wanting to do the same take twice in a row. And oh my god, excellent work out of the Twitch drone from Vasi, already managing to find the 1K claw on this side of the map. And look at that, already Breach is about to pop. slowly delayed by the Twitch drone, but the Twitch drone does manage to get the Tumblr canister before
That's
he's able to shoot the
fantastic.
drone. Excellent work out of Aspire, and oh my, things are falling apart for Saturlity already.
Yeah, that's really fantastic. And it occurs to me, do you know what it is, Hyper? I've worked it out. Saturlity, they're playing Aspire's game. They're not playing their own game anymore.
It's inside.
They're changing their
It's
own
inside.
strategies. This is their pick. They're playing Aspire's game. And it's not going well for them. Ziven caught all the way up on top floor. The objective's on the bottom.
Wizard's
Wizard,
inside.
they'll pick up a triple.
It's over. It's Yellow, last alive, trying to retake down, ironically, Spiral Stairs. Not the ones after his namesake. He will pick up one and a second as he makes his way down. But in the post plant, you've got to imagine it will be markedly too difficult for him. And Casper, holding the angle from Yellow Pillar, decides to put a bullet in Yellow's skull, shutting things down and getting his team over the line. 3 rounds in total for Saturlity over these first 2 play days. And Owl Aspire do manage to lock it down, heading into that 1-1 match next week.
It's a difficult record, isn't it? It's a difficult record to have. It's a difficult one to, I suppose, equate with. That's going to be tough. And I think these last 2 play days are going to be a tough pill to swallow for this Saturlity team as they, as they come in and they understand just what the league is about. Commiserations, because it's very difficult sometimes to know what to say in situations like this because there's a clear attempt at driving towards the objective. There's a clear attempt at, playing competitively, and they have played better today than they did 2 weeks ago against MVG, against the reigning champions. Can you say they played well and put up a huge fight against Aspire? I don't know that you can, in all honesty. But they have picked up 3 rounds, so it's death by 1,000 cuts, Hyber.
It is some
They'll get there in
improvement.
the end.
How many rounds does it take to win a BO3? Minimum 14.
Yeah, 14.
At this
So
rate, they're going to need
currently
more than 3 play days to get themselves to enough rounds.
Yeah,
if we're
their
seeing
round
3-round
differential at
improvement
the
every
moment
week.
stands. Yeah, their round differential at the moment stands at 28-3. Which sorry, at 3-28, I should say. Which it's not an overly desirable one, is it?
It's not the best. And there were some moments in there where I really felt like they had some good ideas and they were beginning to meld as a team. And maybe it's just the fact that they're a newer roster. They haven't played together so long. ESA Season 10 has really only been going on for the last couple of weeks. I mean, if this is a roster that was really just formed for this tournament, then maybe you don't expect them to immediately perform. And they've already shown some improvement. Obviously, they had some ideas here. I had confidence in more rounds than they won. And the 14-3 scoreline maybe doesn't completely do this match justice. There were a lot of rounds that were relatively close that came down to 1v1 situations. And the numbers look very bad, so we're having a little bit of fun with it. But the players absolutely have the potential to find some picks, to continue to improve going forward into the next couple of weeks. And I hope to see them start to do a little bit better as we move forward in this bracket. Speaking of which, our tournament bracket looking a little bit more filled out now. We do see Saturlity down in that 0-2 match. And, Owl is higher up in that 1-1 match, as I mentioned earlier on. They're no longer at risk of elimination, but they do still have a few more games that they'll need to win to be able to qualify for the finals.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's the thing. The beauty of Swiss is, you can have an off day. You can have a day where you don't really show up to the office as such, and you can still claw it back. You can still have a good competition throughout. But as we've seen there, Saturlity, they've had their first chance, they've had their second chance, and now here they are. Their next game day, they're going to have to play some perfect siege, else it may well be their last in this competition.
For tomorrow, we do have more things coming up for you guys. Tomorrow will be MG Minions versus Crown Zero Console, 2 rosters who, had a little bit of a weaker start to this tournament, but they're looking to continue to battle back to try and find some ways to get themselves back into it. And that will be tomorrow, Tuesday at 19:30 CET. Be there. And
Yeah, it's hopefully it'll be somewhat more of a competitive match than we saw today. Today it was not quite the stomp that it was 2 weeks ago, but it was still very much a stomp. Commiserations to Saturlity after their brand change. They have put some things in place. They have been a bit more competitive, and as you said, Hyber, some of the rounds they came down to 1v1s, which sometimes can be a little bit of a coin flip. So you can't dunk too heavily on this team as they work to get things right. But OWL Aspire, they're going to be your victors for today. They'll go up through the bracket, and well, that's all she wrote. That was a very good game for them, and I'm looking forward to seeing them play a little bit more Hyber. For today, though, that is going to be us. Obviously, you've got the games to look forward to over the course of the rest of the week. But here today, from Hyber and myself, good night.